Hello and welcome to another exciting episode of the Tokusatsu Check-In. We're going to be talking about Kamen Rider 01 today as it just wrapped up. It is like 2:15 a.m. I have just finished watching the final episode and I'm very excited to talk about it. Kamen Rider 01, the first Reiwa Kamen Rider, right? A show that I think has some unfortunate missteps, but I also think is really good. Uh, as usual, we're going to talk no spoilers, and then we will give spoiler warning, and after that, it will be all spoilers. So, the first Reiwa Kamen Rider is also the first Kamen Rider that I get to watch week to week. I am very late to Tokusatsu, as some of you may know if you've watched the other videos in the series. I'm very late to Tokusatsu, and as much as I love it, I still have a lot of catching up to do. But I was excited to have a Kamen Rider show that I could watch weekly. I was really excited for it. Then COVID happened, and the weekly schedule kind of got thrown off as it had to. I'm not blaming them for that at all. And it also affected the pacing of the show a lot, but we'll get to that as well. I think Kamen Rider 01 is really solid. I think that the theme of Mankind and Human Gear working together is really good. And I really love the suits. I really love the music. We'll get into the music with some of the spoiler discussion. What I didn't expect to love by the end of it was the characters. I think the characters are, for the most part, really, really good. There's a couple that I think definitely needed more time, but for the most part, those characters are really solid. I think that the theme is really good. The tech is really cool. I think the way that they make things look is really solid. And when it comes down to the belts themselves and the abilities of the belts, the different jingles that go along with them, Perfect Rise is still incredible. I love hearing that every time. The all of the Zetsu Metsu. It's like, yeah, no, all of that is great. Um, I think they did a really good job there. Non spoiler wise, the biggest thing that I think is a problem is how many belts there are. I have the basic driver, the 01 driver, I have the shot riser, and I have the 1000 driver. I do not have the Zetsume riser, I don't have the slash riser, I don't have the arc riser, I don't have the Sklash. Is that what? No, Sklash is from build. It's the regular like small driver that regular people can use. There's so many drivers in this show. There's like 12. Just calm down. Calm down. You don't need that many drivers. We could have just you can take parts off of this one. We could have just got some extra parts to put on. It's fine. It's fine. I think that's probably my biggest issue is just how many drivers there are. I love the progress keys. I think they're really cool. I love the way that they open. I love the feel of them. I love the way that they feel when they go into the belts. Um, I love that it's different. The jingle is different based on if you're using it in the 01 driver or if you're using it in the shot riser. I think that's great. Because this was my first weekly show, I have gotten almost all of the progress keys. There's a lot of them. I don't recommend you get them all unless you're just a collector, but I have almost all of them. I'm only missing some of the Legend Rider keys. I think I'm still missing Agito, Ryuki, Hibiki, and there's like one more that I'm missing, but I have most of them. And I'm really excited. Like, I'm glad to have them. I can look at the shelf and see all of them and just get excited. You know, I can go by there and just push the buttons on all of them and hear them all go off or put them in the belts. And I think that's really cool. I think the keys are really nice. That said, there's a lot of them. Just like there's a lot of belts, there's a lot of keys. And some of it's great and some of it's not. And so I think the biggest issue when it comes to the keys is the assault grip. You can get an assault grip with the assault wolf key, but you technically need two for completion's sake if you want to have them all. But you can only get one with a key. The other one you have to order separate, and it's not cheap for the assault grip. I think that's a little dumb. Like the other key that uses the assault grip could maybe also come with the assault. I'm just saying. But regardless, non spoilers. Do I think you should watch Kamen Rider 01 and where would I rank it in my listing of Kamen Rider shows? Yeah, I think 01 is definitely worth a watch. It's new, it's flashy, it's got better CGI, but it also, I think, has a really solid story. My current rankings, I would probably put Zero One. Oh man, I think I liked Zero One more than Forze, but I'm not sure. So right now it would probably be Double at number 1, Drive at number 2, Tokuger at number 3, Dino at number 4, Build at number 5, O's at number 6, X8 at number 7, Zero One at number 8, Forze at number 9. And then, down past that, Kyoryuger, Lupat Ranger, Kamen Rider Gaim, Kamen Rider Zeo, and Kamen Rider Wizard. Um, I like it a lot. It's really solid, I think. I think it has its issues for sure. And I think that the issues that it has are maybe like Forza doesn't have some of those, but I also think that the main story of Zero One is really solid. So from this point on in the video, 6 minutes in now of me rambling and talking about the belts and the keys, we're going to talk spoilers. So if you don't want to be spoiled, if you want to watch Zero One, go watch it. I think it's really good. And then come back and we'll talk about these characters. With spoilers on, the biggest issue by far is the Zaya arc, man. I love Guy. I think Amatsu Guy is great, and I don't even mind the redemption arc towards the end. We'll get into that. I have problems with it, but I don't mind the idea of it, right? But that Zaya arc drags really hard because every single time you know what's going to happen. It's the Humagear is here, and the Humagear is trying to help people, and the Humagear is going to get hurt by the person that's using the Zaya spec, and then the Humagear is going to go rogue, and then Guy's going to show up and turn into Thouser, and he's going to kill the thing, and then Aruto is going to get mad, and then they're going to fight, and then they're going to rebuild the Humagear, and the Humagear is either going to win or going to lose. There's only like one that doesn't follow that trend. And I think, based on the discussions that I've seen, I think that over the course of discussion of this show, that's going to be the big flaw that comes up every time, is the Zaya arc. There are things about that arc that I really liked. There are things about that arc I thought were really good. Thouser's music, every time he comes on screen during that arc, is incredible. That do, 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 do. It's really, really solid. Seeing the rest of the characters have to rise up to his power level to be able to fight against him was really cool. I think that Guy as a character is a cool idea. If we're going to talk about Guy, we probably got to talk about his redemption arc. I think his redemption arc is very quick. It's very rushed. And I understand why, right? COVID happened. You can't get around that. They had to take a break in shooting. They lost out on some episodes. They did not have the time that would have been dedicated to it. Does that make it okay that it's rushed? No, but it makes it understandable. And so while I do definitely think it's rushed, I also think the reasons why he turned, the reasons why he redeemed, are pretty solid. The idea of he had gotten far away from the boy that he was and had become the man that his father wanted him to be, and instead is now re-embracing that boy that he was before because of Thouser, I think is pretty good. And I think Thouser's addition is pretty solid. That is a really nice and funny dog in a lot of scenes. The scene where Thouser goes to cry because Guy's not apologizing hard enough is really solid. There are... I don't want to just rattle off complaints and then go straight into positives. I want to kind of balance it out. I think the theme of Zero One, the idea of humanity is, humanity has created these super AI, these Humagears, and is now responsible for them and has taught them the worst lessons of humanity while teaching them the best lessons, the best things about humanity and the worst things about humanity all at the same time. And how do these creatures of logic handle that? How do they handle feelings? Because logic and feelings don't really go hand in hand, and we as creatures have both and have to deal with that constantly. So if you take a being that was just logic and then shove feelings in there, how are they going to react? And a lot of media has handled that over the years. It's not a new thing for Zero One, but I think Zero One does it in a really interesting way. Of you have this malice that has built up, and this malice didn't start evil either. It becomes very evil, but it started and learned and grew from humanity, and it took the worst lessons home. Because let's face it, humanity has done a lot of terrible things. And the malice that is built into people is very evident. It wouldn't take much for a computer to be able to figure out, hey, people can be terrible. And so, the Ark has learned this and wants the Humagears to wipe out people. But over the course of the show, the Humagears begin to accept emotion as well. They achieve singularity and they begin to think for themselves. And so then Ark goes, all right, well, they're a problem too. Take out the Humagears as well. And that's where I think it becomes really interesting. It's from a couple episodes before that moment, I guess, but basically that moment is when Zero One went from a pretty good show for me to a really good show. And I think if it had had that quality the entire time, it'd be one of my favorites for sure. But I get it, right? They needed the early episodes. They needed to cement Aruto as a character for you. They needed to let you spend some time with Fua, and we're going to get back to Fua. And they needed to, sell a bunch of progress keys. So, I get it. But, oh my gosh, those last episodes are so good. Bad stuff, right? It was a lot of the same fights over the course of the series. We didn't have a lot of enemies, and we didn't have a lot of kaijin. We didn't have a lot of monsters to fight. The majority of it was, hey, here's these 7 extinct animal types, 8 maybe. There's going to be a Humagear. It's going to go rogue. Then they're going to have to fight it. And maybe they fight Jin, and maybe they fight Horobi, and maybe they fight Ansatsu-chan. But that's kind of it for the early episodes, right? And then Thouser comes in, and he's the bad guy. And so, sure, that's a mix up there. You got to fight Thouser now. And then by the end, it's just back to fight Horobi. I don't think that's bad per se, but it definitely gets to the point where it feels sort of like the Gaim problem of, hey, we have all these writers, but instead of having interesting conflicts between them all the time, which sometimes both shows do, it's, well, we need to fight this episode too, so throw in that guy that they've been fighting for the last 10 episodes. And it definitely drags. I think Thouser is where it becomes really obvious of, okay, well, we're just going to fight the same guy again. I think Aruto beats Guy like 3 times, and Guy has that moment where he's like, you beat me. I'll get you next time, and leaves. And then that happens 3 times in a row. And so that gets old, but for the most part, I think that the combat is really good. I think the choreography and the fights is really solid. And especially towards the end, when they have more people in the cast, there's a lot more people that can fight. And so it leads to some pretty interesting conflicts, I think. Especially when, like, Arc is bouncing between Humagears. And so there are people that are joining the fight and then being pulled out of the fight because Arc has control of them. That's really interesting to me. When it comes to characters, I think that Aruto was a really solid main character, honestly. His like complete inability to give up on Humagears throughout the early story really sells you on his dedication. You see over and over again that he wants Humagears to succeed. He wants people to accept them. He wants them to accept their dreams. And that's why the moment in the like last 4 episodes hits so hard, where for a second he loses that faith. It's because he's had it unfalteringly all this time. He has never given up on Humagears, right? He's befriended people from Metsubo Jinrai. Over and over again, he has stood up for Humagears, and then all of a sudden, he makes a mistake. For just a moment, he gives in and thinks maybe it is hopeless, maybe it can't work. And that's when Arc steps in. And that whole run of episodes is incredible. I think I said that earlier, but Aruto fighting against everybody else because he's become consumed by vengeance, because the malice has taken hold and he can't let go of it. And then realizing that he has to, but that he's not strong enough to do it. So he'll go and make Horobi do it by beating him up. It's really, really good. I like it a lot. And I'm sure there are some people that think that he forgives Horobi too quickly, but I think that just fits in with the theme that Aruto already had of, hey, Humagear have to come first. I have to put their success over anything of myself. My own safety, anything I care about. human gears have to come first. And I think it makes his character really strong. I think that Fua is incredible. Fua Isamu is such a good character. Maybe like top 5 secondaries for me now. He's so good. And like at the end, he can't even transform anymore. And he still called himself a Kamen Rider, busting open car doors and pulling people out of accidents, you know? I love him so much. He's so good over the course of the show. Starting off with that course of revenge, and then finally his arc coming full circle in the moment when he's fighting the berserk Aruto, and he tells him, "You're the way I used to be." And it's just, oh, it's so good. I love his arc so much. His interactions with Naki are so good. His interactions with Yaiba Yua are so good. They just did such a good job with Fua, and it makes it really, really sad how good a job they did with Fua as compared to how bad of a job I think they did with Yaiba Yua. Um, Yua, Yua is like really strong for the first 10 episodes. Then after that, she becomes Guy's lapdog, and then she's Guy's lapdog for a while, and she becomes really strong again for like 4 episodes. And then she kind of doesn't do much at all until like the very second to last episode when she comes back in real strong for the finish. And so she's just like this weird bar graph of ups and downs, hills and valleys. I think as a whole, I enjoyed her a lot, but I definitely wish that she'd been able to do more over the course of the series. And that's probably just because how many writers they had. But it's still such a shame because I think she's super cool. Guy, I've already talked about Guy. I think his character's really solid. I like him a lot. He's not as good as like Dan Kuroto, right? And I also don't think that Dan Kuroto necessarily gets redeemed. I think that's one of the things that I like most about Dan Kuroto Shin's introduction and then his story arc in X8 is that he never technically gets redeemed. He just switches sides. Whereas Guy does get redeemed. He becomes a good guy by the end. He's apologizing and doing the right thing and doing it for the right reasons, you know. But again, I still think he was really solid. His team up with 01 is really solid. It's not as good, in my opinion, as that moment when Aruto teams up with Horobi in episode like 39, maybe 40. That moment is incredible where the music kicks in and everything's getting great so that they can rescue Jin. That's really good. Horobi. Horobi as a character I think is really, really good. He starts off extremely bland, but little by little you get to see like the person that he is underneath gets shaved clear too, you know? He rescues Jin, and then little by little you see that stuff just get peeled back as he's talking about how arc will has to be done, arc has to be followed, and then you just get the moments where he breaks, the moment where he won't let arc kill Jin, the moment where he himself won't kill Jin and he doesn't know why, all leading up to that incredible reveal of the moment when he's fighting Aruto and he's telling Aruto that like he's the problem. He hates humanity because humanity would make things like this happen. They would make these feelings come up inside him and he doesn't know how to deal with them. And it goes back to that idea of logic meets emotion of he didn't want this. He didn't want emotions. He wanted to be cold and calculating, but they're here now and he can't do anything about them and he doesn't know how to cope. And I think the moment where it's maybe my favorite moment in the whole show, the moment where he shoots Izu. Because, like, that's not supposed to happen, right? When Chase holds the bow up to Kiriko, he doesn't fire. You know, you don't do it. And Horobi fires and kills Izu. And then after that, he's real shook up about it. And you have that moment where, like, Aruto gets upset and tries to kill Horobi and kills Jin. And it's just the cycle of revenge, right? It's what Arc wanted, the malice to just grow in people. But the cycle of revenge with a robot that now has to try to understand, hey, that's what this is. This is just going to make things worse. And it doesn't matter because he's blinded by emotion. And I think that's a really nice spin on the cycle of revenge, right? And the way it's resolved is really interesting too. The fact that at the end of the series, Horby has Jin back. Horby was the problem. He was the inciting incident. He was the issue. He was the one who stole Izu from Aruto. But he gets what he wants at the end of the series. He's reunited with his son. And Aruto gets a different Izu. It's not his Izu. She doesn't know any of the stuff they've been through. She doesn't remember anything. And so he has to slowly teach her how to be the old Izu. And it's even brought up by Shesta as like, hey, that's not the same person. And he's like, no, it'll be fine. It'll be fine. Because he's in denial. He wants her back so badly. And so it's pretty crazy in that, the cycle of revenge is such a tried old trope. And there's another piece of media that just recently has done it in kind of the same way, where the villain gets off scot-free at the end of the series. But Horobi now is the defender of mankind and of Humagears. He is out there to make sure that malice doesn't pop up again. He is going to serve his term. He is going to do this job for eternity, I guess, until he dies, there is no difference there. There's no change there. That's what he's going to be doing. That is the role that he has been handed. Whereas Aruto gets to go on living his life. He gets to just be. He gets to continue to be the president of Hidden Intelligence. He gets to spend time with Izu. And so it's just really interesting to me that, on the surface level, Horobi got off scot-free. But realistically, Horobi will now be doing this job for time until he's done, And I think that's really cool it's not really a happy ending, even though it is. Aruto does not get Izu back. He gets a different Izu. Horobi doesn't get to just have his freedom. He now has a job to do, and he's going to do it. Fua is a Kamen Rider, right? But without the armor, without the gun, without the cool effects. He's just out there helping people. Yua is in charge of aims, and she's making sure everybody's doing great and teaching them and making sure that they respect Humagears and people alike. And Naki joins aims, which is super cool. But Guy is still working out of an electrical closet, And he's got all these thousands. He's happy, but he's working out of an electrical closet. And it's really cool that it's not just tie a bow on it, everything's great, everybody's happy, good job, we're done here. I think that's a really interesting way to do it. Jin as a character, maybe Fu is probably my favorite, but I think Jin might be a close second. He's just such an interesting character. He starts off as the haha funny crazy bad guy, right? But you find out his motivation is that he just wants to protect his friends, and his friends are all the other Humagears. That's what Horobi has taught him, right? But then he becomes friends with Izu, and then he becomes friends with Aruto, and it changes everything. And so then Jin is this rogue agent in the middle of everything else going on. He's working with Yua, he's working with Zaya, he's working with Aruto, and it just all comes together in that beautiful moment where Aruto kills him, and Jin doesn't hold anything against him for it. And the moment where Azu is trying to get Arc to build up again by the cycle of revenge, right? And Horobi's like, no, they won't do that though. It's all going to work out. They're stronger than this. And both of them choose to give up on their revenge. Which is, oh man, that scene's so good. The music that plays during that moment, the music that plays during the Jin moment, the music that plays when Arc 1 is just walking through people. Oh my gosh, that music is so good. I also really love the moment when Arc 1 breaks the 1000 driver and Guy's just like, my driver. And then he never uses it again for the rest of the series. You never see him transform again. It's like, yeah, no, it broke. We got to keep going. Where in a lot of other shows, it would have been, okay, it broke. Yeah, we'll have another one before next week's episode. And so I think 01 succeeds in a lot of its storytelling. Even if I don't think that it succeeds in all of it, The early stuff in Zero One, I think, is really good. The middle stuff, I think, in Zero One is not that good. And then the finale, I think, of Zero One is really good. And so it balances out to me to be just like, hey, it's a really good show, you know? It just, I wish that the Zaya arc had been done differently, but at the same time, I really like what we got. I think the theme of the Human Gears is really solid, and I kind of just wish those last 5, 7 episodes had just been 10 episodes instead. Just give me a little bit more time. I want to see Ikazuchi get to transform again. I want to see Naki out there doing stuff before that great moment when Naki gives their key to Fua so that Fua can transform to try and stop Aruto when he's all berserk. Yeah, it was just a really solid ending. I guess favorite Huma Gear is probably Jin, right? But if it has to be one of the other ones, I think Smile was really good. I think the manga artist was really good. I liked the sushi episodes a lot. Getting to see a couple of those towards the end was really cool. Oh, I like the firefighter a lot too. Firefighter was really good. Zero One, again, it's the first rider of the show that I've watched weekly, and I think it was a fun watch. Again, it's gonna be one that people debate about. There's gonna be a lot of people that I think won't like it, right? But at the same time, I thought it was really cool. I thought the characters were really solid. I thought the music was really good. I like the belts, even though there's too many of them. I like the jingles. I love the OP. Realize is such a good song. I also really like the jingle that plays at the end of every episode. Do 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 do. It's real good. It's really good. Kamen Rider Zero One, definitely worth a watch if you've been on the fence about it. Especially now that it's all wrapped up, you can watch it all in a go. Just be aware that there's going to be some episodes where all of a sudden, hey, here's some bonus episodes. That's just a recap episode because COVID. All that said, though, let me know your thoughts on Kamen Rider Zero One in the comment section down below. And until next time, I've been Trey. This has been the Full Spectrum. Remember to always enjoy the full spectrum. The Tokusatsu has to offer.